Hey, YouTube viewers, welcome to Right Now, episode 27 with David Summerlin. And as we begin, here's a YouTube-only question. David, right now, if you're about to play Warzone, who do you want on your team? Auburn Shepherd or Turner? Let's go Turner Lock.
Oh, those are my two options, Auburn.
Auburn Shepherd, 100%?
Yeah.
No question?
Oh, yeah, definitely. If we're running some duos, I'll get Auburn.
Auburn, 100%. You've heard it first right now. Sorry, Turner, but Auburn's his man when it comes to Warzone. Check out episode 27 of Right Now. Hey, everyone, and welcome to Right Now, a student ministry podcast here at Ridgecrest Baptist Church. And this is episode 27 with my man, David Summerlin. Welcome, David. Glad to have you on the podcast today.
Glad to be here.
So we've already had a quick conversation for those on YouTube, and we're not going to go back there about your Warzone thought between Auburn and Turner, but we do have an opening question that is a surprise question on the podcast. And if you've watched any of them, it's not going to be a surprise to you, David. But let's get started with this question. Right now, if you could do anything, time wasn't an issue, space was an issue, money was an issue, what would you do and why?
So if time and money are not an issue at all, I would super research space travel, all right? And then I'd explore all of space and find intelligent life.
All right. So you think intelligent life is out there.
Mm-hmm.
How far you got to go?
Probably a few light years, but if time's not a factor, that won't matter.
So would you build your own like a way to get out there, or would you just buy you something?
Probably just use like normal spaceships or something.
Okay, so you
Or
don't.
I guess I could invent like a warp drive or something if time's not a factor.
Okay, I don't know what a warp drive is.
It's like the hyperdrive from Star Wars.
Oh,
You know
okay,
that
all
is?
right.
Yeah.
I know the hyperdrive. There we go.
Yeah.
I rode Smuggler's Run last week in Disney World, and Mr. Asher pulled the hyperdrive down.
Well, that's
us
cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So, well, that's interesting. Space travel. You're interested in all that kind of stuff. Are you big into like research on the SpaceX world and stuff like that?
Mm-hmm. I think that's all cool. Want to know what's all out there?
Yeah, for sure. It's an interesting world when you think about how far does this go, what is all out there. That's very interesting. So maybe one day we'll travel to space together. You know, the goal, I guess was Elon Musk wants people to just be able to go to space and come back.
We can be space missionaries.
Hey, you might never know. E.T. and his buddies they need Jesus just as much, I guess, as the rest of us do. So, well, let's start today, David, as we think about our podcast. And right now, we do this podcast to encourage people to think about living in the moment, using their life and being wise, as Ephesians 5 tells us to be, versus unwise like the rest of the world. And so as we think about that, we want to talk about three main questions. And it's so fun to have these conversations with you guys on this podcast. And I know people that watch and listen to this enjoy listening to it as well, because it's an encouragement to them. And so as we begin today, first question, David, what's God teaching you right now?
God's just really been teaching me about how to take that first step in evangelizing to people, which is showing other people compassion and kindness. Because really, it's kind of, people think that sharing the gospel is step one, but really that's more like the touchdown. Step one's getting that first down, which is just getting them into a point where they feel comfortable talking to you about these harder subjects and more. They don't feel like you're preaching down to them because you're saved, because we're not better than people who aren't saved because we're saved. We're in a better position than people who aren't saved, and we want to get them to that position. And so we're not standing on like a pedestal talking down to them about, their struggles and belittling them in a way, but we're trying to show compassion and kindness to them, because that's what Jesus did. Jesus spent a large majority of his time either with his disciples or with sinners.
Right.
Well, everyone's sinners, but like tax collectors and people that society looked down upon because it was not politically correct to be around them and what they were doing.
Right.
But Jesus still, he would spend time with them. He would perform miracles to them. He would use kindness towards them, and because of that, they were more willing to listen to what he had to say.
Yeah, that's really good, David. I heard one time from a pastor that was at this church. He said this: evangelism has really transitioned from confrontational type ministry to relational ministry. You know, evangelism for a long time, the church would go bang on doors just randomly, not know anybody, and share Jesus. And there was a time and place for that, and maybe there still is today. But now it's more about relationships. And I think that's what I'm hearing you say right here, in that compassion and love, that first down. I love that analogy before you get to the touchdown. Having that relationship with somebody to then share more about who Jesus is and the goodness of his grace and love towards them. And so really quickly, a little bit deeper into that conversation for a second. What is something that has helped you? What does that first step look like when you're trying to really show compassion and love to somebody before you share Jesus with them? What does that practically look like? Whether it's somebody new that you meet or a friend that you have that you've known for a long time, just what's that initial step maybe for you?
Well, I really feel like that first step is normally you can kind of enter the through either just being patient and then people will realize something's different there, or just kind of abnormal like kindness towards people.
Yeah.
And not necessarily being I'm not sure what the best way to put it would be, but like
just coming towards them with the compassion and that kindness versus not paying them attention or not showing them any type of attention. Would that be kind of what you think?
That's what I'm getting at, because they'll recognize that, because most people are pretty like cold nowadays.
Correct.
But whenever you come with and you're more friendly to them, you're not like seeing them as a charity thing too. Right. Not being disingenuous about why you're being compassionate towards them. You're not trying to like guilt them into salvation, because you can't guilt someone into salvation.
Correct. Yeah, no, that's really, really good, because for a lot of us, our initial step towards a person, it might just be a smile. It might just be a hello. It might be a handshake. It might be just a comment or something like that. But that's the first step to open the door of the relationship that hopefully takes you deeper into their life, for you to tell them who God is to you and what he's done, and how he's changed your life, for the goal of them getting to a place, hopefully the Holy Spirit draws them to the same lifestyle. And so, David, that's a huge challenge as we think about evangelism in general, because we have the opportunity to take the good news to the ends of the earth, and that starts with us being people of relationships and showing that kindness and love before we try to just, instead of shoving the gospel kind of down their throat in some ways. And that's what's turned people off in a lot of ways. So huge challenge for us today, for those watching and listening, to think about building those relationships to point people to Jesus. Second question, you ready?
Yes, sir.
1 for 1 already. So here we go. Number 2, let's say like this: how can God use your generation right now?
I think that God can use our generation to kind of be the first generation in a while to not necessarily demonize people that we don't agree with.
That's good.
Because it's really normalized in just every facet of life. So if someone doesn't agree with you, they're your enemy. Right. Even in like something that's, relatively speaking, pretty small, like sports or something, like Auburn and Alabama.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we just are so quick to put up borders and focus on what divides us instead of something that we can unite on, like a common goal or anything like that. And I think that what can ultimately be a focus of our generation, because with social media and all of that, there's so much more to care about. And so you can find more things to be divided on, but you can also find more things to be united on.
That's good. You can find more things because of social media to be divided on, but also to be united on. That's a huge statement. That's a great statement, David, today to think about. When you think about that thought of not making everybody your enemy just because you don't see eye to eye on some sort of situation, what is something that you would say that helps you, for a friend or a family member or somebody, a coworker or something like that? What helps you not go there? What helps you not see them as your enemy and just be able to say, okay, maybe I'm going to agree to disagree on this, but I still love you where you are? What's something that helps you do that?
I mean, a lot of times it's just if you take a step back and kind of readjust your perspective on it, and like does it really matter that much that it's worth jeopardizing this relationship with, or letting this be baggage carrying on and having that slow down your progress in various different things, whether it's a disagreement with a coworker or a brother in Christ or anything like that. It will, if you let the disagreements and the different points of view tarnish your relationships, you're going to get nowhere.
Yeah, that's a great point. Take that step back. Ask the question, is it worth their having this issue between the two of you now because of that, and not letting it affect that relationship? Another, I hear this common kind of conversation coming out of these things, that God's working in you right now, of just that relationship and that love towards people, and not being people of division, but being people of unity. So third question as we wrap up today, David, great job so far on these first two questions, but this one's always fun to me to hear from those that sit in that chair as we talk about on the Right Now podcast. But what's a major current event of interest to you right now?
I'd say a major current event of interest to me is something that's not like insane, but it's the NBA playoffs coming up.
All right.
I'm a big NBA fan.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm excited to see how the play-in tournament goes.
Okay.
For the lower seeds, it's the 7, 8 seed, 9 seed, and 10 seed are all going to play each other for those last two playoff spots.
And that's the first time that's been done?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so playoffs are coming up. Who's your team?
The Denver Nuggets.
The Denver Nuggets. Are they in the playoffs?
Mm-hmm. We're the third seed right now.
Third seed, okay. Who do you think realistically is going to win it?
Probably the Lakers, honestly.
You think so?
They're pretty loaded this year.
Think going back with did the Lakers win it last year?
They won it last year.
All right, so big NBA fan. Have you always been a big NBA fan? Or
not
more
really.
recent years?
It's been more recent, like middle school and high school. I started getting it because I started playing basketball with the Kings.
Yeah.
And then whenever more I played there, I was like, this is great. And I want to watch it on TV. And I'm like, holy mess, these guys are like really good.
They are good. So who's your favorite player?
Nikola Jokic.
All right. Who do you think is the best player in the league?
Nikola Jokic, definitely. Right. Front runner for MVP.
Front runner. You've heard it right there, everybody. That's the thought from David and his thought towards NBA. But here we go as we wrap up. Are you, and I don't know if I need to ask this or not, are you a LeBron James fan?
No.
No?
No.
As a player, are you a LeBron James fan?
Not really. I mean, he's not as good as he used to be. Now he's kind of riding on his status to get he has to get a lot of free throws every game. He's got to get a lot of calls.
Right.
And now his teammates have to take a much bigger step up because of it. Because it's not like at the start of his career whenever he was one-man army every playoff series. Yeah, now he's a man full of excuses now.
We might better end the podcast on that one. So I always love to hear folks' thoughts on LeBron, because LeBron brings up a lot of interesting conversations, and people have high thoughts towards him, good and bad. So anyways, David, great job today on the podcast. Again, a great challenge for us when it comes to relationships and thinking about making sure we see people through the eyes of compassion and love, and seek to be people of unity and not division. So thanks for being on the podcast today. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you all as well for watching and listening today. Love for you to like, share, and subscribe the podcast as always, so other people can experience it. And we encourage you more than anything to think about living your life right now for the glory of God.